Hello friends, my name is Tawfiq and you're watching my channel Graphics 10. So in this video in Photoshop, we are going to see what is the difference between vibrance and saturation. So if we go to image adjustments, we can find this option vibrance. So we have a couple of options called as vibrance and saturation. We can find the same options in the layers panel. And this is a bit different as this is a adjustment layer. This creates a layer and this one applies directly on the layer itself, but both the things give same results. So what is the difference? Before that, we need to know few things about the lighting and brightness of any image. So for example, what are the values called as highlights, shadows and midtones? We need to know these values first. And if you used these tools, dodge and burn tool, you may have seen the options in the range section: shadows, midtones and highlights. So what are these things? So basically in any image or any photograph can be divided into three parts. So what are these three parts? So three parts are highlights, shadow and midtones. So highlights, brightest area of any image is called as or can be called as highlights, and the darkest area in any image is called as shadows, and the area in between these two is called as midtones. So in this particular image, this is the brightest area, so it is called as highlights in this image, and this area over here just below the car and maybe a little bit of this area, this is the darkest area in this image, so this is called as the shadows. Remember, brightest area highlights, darkest area shadow, and anything in between is called as midtones. So this is basically how any image is divided for simplicity. But remember, these values are different for different images. For example, if I take this image, the highlights of this image is very different from this one. So, and it is sometimes it is difficult to find the difference between shadow, midtones and highlights. So I can say this is the brightest area, so hence this is highlights, and this area over here just between the plants, this is the darkest area, so it is called as shadows, and anything in between is called as midtones. So these are the main areas that can be, the image can be divided into. So while using the dodge tool, you may have used these ranges, midtones. So highlights only affect largely on the highlighted area or the highlights area, and shadows will ideally affect the shadow area. Similarly in burn tool, we have same range. But why this is important, why I told you it is very important, because if you use image adjustment and vibrance, if we change the value of saturation like this, so saturation affects all the parts. By parts I mean highlights, shadow and midtones. Saturation changes or affects all the areas, highlights, midtones and shadows like this, but vibrance only affects midtones like this. So if we take it to 82, now this is a slight difference, but if I increase the vibrance value, this is a slight difference. It is still looking realistic, but if I change the value, I'll make it 0 again, and if I change the value of saturation, you can see a very big difference between the initial value and the result. So this is not looking that realistic, because it affects all the parts, that is highlight, shadow and midtones. So saturation changes all colors in all parts, that is it affects all the parts in any image, but vibrance only affects the midtones. That is why it is recommended that if you want to increase color in any photo, you should use vibrance, because it will give you more realistic effect or result. And if you want to decrease color in any photo or image, then you can use saturation. It is only a recommendation, you can always try it out, try different things, but if you want to decrease color, then saturation, and if you want to increase color, then you should use vibrance. So this is the main difference or the biggest difference between vibrance and saturation. Vibrance only affects midtones, saturation affects all the parts, that is highlights, shadow and midtones. That is why highlights, shadows and midtones, these properties are very important. Once you understand these values, you can work very easily with any image, that is while you are working or while you are editing any image, these properties are very important. So this is the biggest difference between vibrance and saturation. I hope you find this video useful. So if you find this video useful, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next one. Until then, bye bye and cheers.